Have you ever felt your stomach tighten, or your mind race at the mere thought of facing the unknown? Whether it involves speaking up in a crowd, venturing into a new project, or admitting a deeply held dream, many of us experience fear as a looming shadow that seems to halt our progress or dampen our spirit. Yet, from the Buddha's gentle teaching, we learn that fear need not be our enemy. It can become a guiding signal, prompting us to investigate our beliefs and to step forward with mindful courage. Indeed, every pang of apprehension can be viewed as a catalyst for growth, rather than as a permanent roadblock. Today, we will explore the story of a boy who was so terrified of the dark that even the smallest flicker of light could not ease his worries. This may seem like a familiar scenario, especially for those who have known the weight of dread, whether big or small, and how it can linger in daily life. Through this tale, we will discover that the path to overcoming fear lies not in pretending it does not exist, but in bringing an attentive and compassionate presence to it. Such openness invites deeper strength and resilience, allowing us to act rather than remain stuck in uncertainty. You might wonder, how could a story about one child's bedtime anxieties illuminate the way we deal with fear as adults? The Buddhist teachings remind us that fear of the unknown, of judgment, or of failure is universal, a burden we share across different stages of life. By examining how a single, persistent dread was overcome, we can grasp a lesson that resonates far beyond childhood. Most of all, this approach encourages us to hold on to the possibility of growth and liberation in the face of every perceived obstacle. Let us begin this journey together, uncovering the inner capacity to transform fear into understanding and to invite courage into our hearts. Imagine a young boy, small in stature but with a heart that yearns for courage, who finds himself rooted to his bed each night, petrified by the darkness gathering around him. Even if a soft lamp glows nearby, the lurking shadows fuel his imagination, conjuring images of nameless monsters. Time and again, he tries to shut his eyes and will the fear away, only to feel his heartbeat quicken, convinced that danger hides just beyond his vision. His parents grow concerned, not sure whether to soothe him with endless lights or to gently nudge him to face his dread. Finally, a wise mentor comes into the picture, offering an approach that resonates with the Buddha's counsel on fear, reminding the family that if the boy never faces this darkness, he may lose the chance to realize his own inner strength. Under this teacher's guidance, the boy begins a small but brave practice each evening. He sits on his bed, the lamp switched off, focusing on his breath. Although his heart pounds at first, He is encouraged to see that while the darkness shifts and changes, it cannot harm him. In these moments, he recalls the Buddha's lesson. Fear often magnifies illusions rather than reflecting true threats. Gradually, he notices that the shapes he once perceived as menacing are merely familiar objects silhouetted by dim light. He learns to label his anxiety as a feeling, just one part of his experience, rather than letting it dictate his entire reality. Through this consistent nightly ritual, the boy experiences a subtle shift from dread to curiosity. To bolster his confidence, his mentor shares a simple mantra: the darkness outside cannot overshadow the light in your mind. Each repetition reminds the boy that while external conditions can evoke apprehension, the mind's choice to confront or avoid fear remains his own. From a Buddhist standpoint, this mindful confrontation dissolves the false boundaries created by anxiety. In that sense, the boy's journey is not merely about banishing a childhood phobia. It is a microcosm of how each of us can deal with life's uncertainties. As we listen to the quiet hush of the night, we discover our capacity to meet discomfort with patience and determination. This process may take time and gentle self-compassion, both of which the teacher wholeheartedly recommends. Even when the boy's heart races, he can recall how fear serves as a mental construction, fueled by imagination. Stepping beyond that mental barrier becomes an act of liberation, an affirmation that, while darkness exists, it need not define our potential for courage. In choosing to face rather than flee this small but persistent terror, the boy awakens a source of resilience that will guide him long after his fear of the dark has faded away. Imagine a young boy who spends his evenings dreading the moment daylight slips away, convinced that the instant his bedroom light goes out, unknown terrors emerge from the darkness. Each night, he fights to stay awake, anxiously scanning every shadow, waiting for the faintest sign of movement. The mere thought of this routine causes his heart to race, his breath to shorten, and his mind to swirl with fears that feel all too real. In that struggle, he believes the solution might be brighter lamps or more words of comfort, anything to make the terror vanish instantly. Yet, as the Buddha gently suggests, confronting our deepest fears begins not by clinging to external fixes but by transforming the way our minds perceive what we find frightening. Picture the turning point. A caring mentor steps into the boy's life, offering advice that seems counterintuitive at first. Rather than trying to fight off the darkness with an army of flashlights, the mentor instructs him to sit calmly for a brief period each night, focusing on his breath and watching how his fear manifests. Although the boy's pulse pounds whenever the lights are dimmed, he gradually notices something crucial. while his imagination conjures threats in the shadows. The reality around him does not change. This approach mirrors the Buddha's teaching of mindful awareness, which encourages us to look steadily at our anxieties, recognizing them as products of the mind rather than absolute truths. In many ways, the boy's apprehension speaks to broader fears we each carry. Some people fear speaking publicly, others fear rejection, and still more are haunted by the specter of failure. Although these concerns differ in detail, they share the same root: an unwillingness to remain present with discomfort, and the illusion that running away is the best solution. Through consistent practice, the boy learns that while the darkness remains the same each night, his perception of it slowly shifts. Each time he notices the beating of his heart and decides not to flee, he chips away at the illusion. The overwhelming power of his fear diminishes the moment he meets it with calm observation. In applying this perspective to your own life, consider the teaching that the Buddha once conveyed. Fear often thrives on the stories we tell ourselves. If we grant those stories free rein, they can expand, overshadowing our sense of capability and dulling our vision of what is actually possible. The boy's journey reminds us that by turning a gentle spotlight onto our apprehensions, we expose them as shadows cast by uncertainty. We learn that genuine safety, or the feeling of it, emerges when we recognize how fear operates in our minds and choose to respond rather than react. Even if your heart quivers at the thought of stepping outside your comfort zone, mindful attention can provide the steady ground you need to stand upon. Moreover, the impact of a nurturing presence cannot be overstated. Just as the boy's mentor provided guidance, we can benefit from sharing our fears with trusted friends, teachers, or communities. Often, the simple act of naming our dread, saying, "I am afraid of X, and it makes my heart race," relieves some of its hold. Compassion, both received and given, has the capacity to erode fear's foundations. In Buddhism, this aligns with the concept of Sangha, a supportive community where people come together to learn and grow. When you confide in someone who listens without judgment, you discover that your fear is not singular or unmanageable. Like the boy's fear of the dark, your concern may be more flexible than it appears, ready to shift once you shine the light of understanding upon it. A pivotal step in the boy's transformation lies in the acknowledgement that he cannot simply wish his fear away. Instead, each night becomes an invitation to explore the boundary between tension and curiosity. Yes, his anxiety may flare the moment the lamp goes off, but by returning to his breath, just as the Buddha taught, he nurtures the mental space necessary to differentiate between genuine threats and the illusions magnified by worry. At times, you, too, might feel your concerns escalate rapidly, Practicing this very approach, pausing, inhaling, exhaling slowly, can remind you that fear does not have to control your next decision. You can allow the feeling to pass through you like a wave, noticing it without judgment and watching it recede. In time, the boy not only sleeps more peacefully, but also carries a newfound resilience into his daytime activities. This is one of the most significant gifts a mindful approach to fear provides. The realization that conquering one anxiety can ripple across other areas of life. Once you recognize your capacity to handle an intimidating scenario, be it darkness, speaking out, or venturing into unknown territory, you begin to suspect that many other fears are equally surmountable. This growing confidence, grounded in observation rather than denial, serves as a testament to the Buddha's counsel that liberation arises from knowledge of the mind. Finally, let this story reaffirm your power to step beyond intimidation. Whether you are afraid of an interview, a difficult conversation, or the vulnerability inherent in pursuing your dreams, just as the boy emerged from the hush of nighttime with steadier nerves, you can learn to approach every frightening scenario with curiosity and mindful breathing. Bit by bit, you peel away fear's hold, glimpsing the path toward freedom that the Buddha promises resides within each of us. The boy's journey does not end once he sleeps soundly in the dark. Rather, it grows into a spirit of courage that colors his whole life, providing a living reminder that we, too, can choose action over paralysis, clarity over confusion, and the unwavering light of insight over the fleeting shadows of doubt. Let us now delve more deeply into how this boy's journey of confronting darkness can illuminate our understanding of fear and its potential for transformation. At first glance, the solution to his dread seems straightforward. Add more light, chase away the shadows, and pretend the terrors do not exist. However, through the perspective of the Buddhist teachings, we realize that true liberation from fear emerges not by avoiding the unknown but by gently meeting it with mindfulness. The boy's story reminds us that as we practice facing what intimidates us, we gradually unravel the illusions that give fear its grip, revealing a resilient core we seldom knew we possessed. Imagine your own moments of hesitation, whether they involve speaking your truth in front of peers, trying a new vocation, or stepping outside your carefully maintained comfort zone. Each time you refrain from taking that step, your mind whispers reasons. You are not ready. You might fail. Others will judge you. The Buddha encourages us to observe these internal dialogues with compassion rather than believing them as absolute truths. Much like the child who initially believed that darkness concealed immeasurable horrors, our anxieties project vast shadows onto ordinary situations. By naming those worries, saying, "I notice fear," or "I feel vulnerable," We bring them into the light of awareness, where they often shrink into more approachable challenges. A significant aspect of this transformation lies in learning how to breathe through discomfort. The boy, under guidance, took slow, deliberate breaths when the night enveloped his room. Each inhale grounded him in his body. Each exhale released tension. This practice mirrors a key Buddhist principle. The breath serves as an anchor, stabilizing the mind when it wants to flee into panicked speculation. In the stillness of those breath cycles, the illusions around him had less power, and what once seemed a terrifying void proved to be just a dimly lit space. Through such deliberate acts of presence, we awaken a sense of calm that can coexist with fear, providing the stepping stones for genuine courage. Yet, one might ask, is it enough simply to breathe and observe? The Buddha would say that while mindful breathing is a potent tool, it is the heart's openness that completes the equation. Fear often thrives on isolation when we believe we must face everything alone. If, however, like the boy, we reach out to a mentor or a supportive community, we realize that we are not solitary in our struggles. Indeed, countless others battle similar demons of anxiety, self-doubt, or fear of judgment. By acknowledging this shared humanity, we shatter the illusion that fear singles us out for punishment. Compassion, both for ourselves and for those around us, then becomes the fuel that sustains us. With each act of empathy, either receiving or giving help, we discover that fear is less daunting when someone stands by our side, encouraging us to see beyond imagined boundaries. Consider also the long-term impact of confronting fear in this mindful way. The boy did not simply learn to handle his phobia of the dark. He cultivated a resource within himself that would likely serve him throughout life's uncertainties. Each night he practiced, each tremor he observed and accepted, each instance of surviving what once seemed unbearable, contributed to an inner library of courage and insight. This is precisely the wisdom the Buddha points to. Once we have seen through one fear, we begin to suspect that all fears may be similarly overstated. The mind, left untrained, often invents elaborate justifications for why we cannot do something. But after experiencing the triumph of facing a single dread, our perspective shifts. We start to believe that if we can handle this challenge, perhaps we can handle another, and another, until fear no longer dictates our decisions. For those of us navigating adult responsibilities, the lessons from his experience remain profoundly relevant. We may not fret over the dark in our bedrooms, but we might hesitate to start a new project, express a bold opinion, or even open our hearts to a deeper relationship. We tell ourselves the conditions are not right. The world is not safe enough. We are not sufficiently prepared. Yet, taking a cue from this boy's willingness to step into the dim unknown, we can begin to experiment with small acts of bravery. Try volunteering for a task you once felt unqualified for. Attempt that artistic endeavor you have postponed for fear of criticism. Or speak truthfully in a situation where you have long kept silent. Each quiet step forward, each moment of confronting your doubts, expands your capacity to live authentically. It is also worth noting that the boy did not conquer his fear overnight. Like many aspects of Buddhist practice, this path involves incremental progress, tempered by setbacks and surges of newfound courage. Perhaps one evening, he endured the darkness with relative ease, only to be shaken by a thunderstorm the following night. Yet, in persevering through these fluctuations, he gained a measured confidence in his own resilience. If the Buddhist teachings tell us anything about fear, it is that patience, both with ourselves and with the process, can be as decisive as boldness. We honor each small advance, each instance where we pause and choose mindfulness over panic. Over time, these moments accumulate, empowering us to face increasingly complex uncertainties with calm determination. Reflecting on this boy's quiet triumph can reinvigorate our approach to whatever intimidation we face. Let us remember that fear is not an unbreakable wall. It is often a cleverly painted backdrop that loses its commanding presence once we scrutinize it with awareness. The Buddha's counsel would have us trust our innate capacity for courage, a quality fostered by observing fear impartially, practicing self-compassion when we falter, and celebrating small victories as we move forward. May we all take heart in this simple yet profound story whenever anxiety whispers in our ears, urging us to recoil from the darkness ahead. Let us recall how a young boy found calm in the shadows. With mindful attention and willingness to act, we too can shine light into our darkest corners, revealing that fear's hold is tenuous and that genuine strength blossoms when we courageously say, "I will face this," and truly mean it. As we conclude this exploration, reflect on how the boy's journey, confronting the darkness that once gripped his heart, mirrors our own capacity to transform fear into possibility. What began as a paralyzing dread evolved into a discovery of quiet resilience, nurtured by calm, purposeful action. In the Buddhist teaching, this process reflects a core truth. We need not uproot fear entirely to move forward. Rather, we can observe it, accept it, and mindfully walk beyond its limits. In doing so, we reclaim the right to shape our life's path, rather than allowing apprehension to define our every choice. Consider for a moment how this shift applies to your own life. Perhaps you hesitate to apply for a certain job, to speak your truth in a meeting, or to express your genuine aspirations for fear of falling short. Yet, as the Buddha taught, fear is often a habitual thought pattern, not an indisputable fact. Just as the boy realized that his dread of the dark was rooted more in his own imagination than in real danger. You can recognize that many of your anxieties thrive on uncertainty rather than certainty. By bringing a gentle, observant presence to these feelings, you can move from being ruled by fear to understanding it as a temporary state, one that can fade when met with compassion and courage. Today, ask yourself, what single step could I take, even if small, to challenge my most persistent worry? Is there one action, a brief conversation, a planned project, or even a moment of solitude through which I might begin to see how fear melts when faced directly? The boy's story suggests that beneath every tremor of the heart, there is space to breathe and choose a more purposeful path. Do not wait for a time when you feel entirely fearless. Such a moment rarely arrives. Instead, allow the lessons of mindfulness and the Buddha's compassionate perspective to remind you that bravery grows from acknowledging fear, engaging with it, and taking action anyway. Carry this insight with you in the days ahead, for each tremble of fear can become a prompt to awaken your inherent strength. As the boy discovered peace by gazing into the darkness, you too can find a steady light in your own capacity for clarity and resolve, shining all the more brightly once you dare to turn it on. If this message spoke to you, please hit that like button. And if it did not quite resonate, then I kindly invite you to subscribe to the channel. Either way, you will be supporting a community dedicated to reflection, inspiration, and mindful living. Together, we can continue exploring ways to conquer our fears and nurture our potential for growth.